Hi, I'm Henrik Kazansky, and I'm doing the surprise presentation. Um, and for my segment, we're going to explore the proposed question based on culture and the emotion of surprise. And our proposed question is: does expression and recognition of the emotion of surprise differ across cultures? I thought a good place to start was at the Ekman and Friesman study we all read at the beginning of this month. Um, as a reminder, the the results of the study showed that the expression of the emotion of surprise was basically universal across all cultures, with slightly differing accuracy ratings of recognizing the emotion of surprise. I thought these differences in accuracy ratings were interesting and were a good place to start for further research and to answer this question. By doing this, the first study we explored was between Japanese and Western Caucasian participants who expressed the emotion of surprise for the study and then um, tried to recognize and evaluate that facial expression of surprise across the two cultures. What the study found was that the Japanese participants, I mean, the East Asian participants had a different way of facially expressing surprise than the Western participants. They noticed that the East Asian participants tended to use eye movements more to express surprise on their face than the Western participants, who tended to use their mouth and the raising of the eyebrows to do it more. They also found that this difference in facial expression impacted their ability to recognize surprise across the cultures. So the East Asian participants were better at recognizing the facial expression from their own people than from the Western people, and vice versa. The second study was more of an observation study, but done by Schfuter, who observed that the variety of people in India tended to express surprise in a more elaborate and expressive way than most other cultures. He found that, like, when compared to Western cultures that would just express surprise with raising of the eyebrows and opening the mouth, this culture would also extend the tongue out and to bite down on it as well as cross the eyes. This is interesting because although the basis for the expression of surprise stays the same between the cultures, this culture differs in the certain characteristics of expressing surprise. And based on the previous study, this shows that this might also have an impact on the ability of cross culture recognition of surprise. The last study examines Dutch participants and Indian participants on their ability to recognize the emotion of surprise and evaluate it in facial expressions by Indian people. Something that was interesting about the study is that the Indian participants and the Dutch participants had the same accuracy ratings in recognizing the emotion of surprise. But what was different is that the Indian participants had more depth evaluations of those facial expressions of surprise than the Dutch participants. For example, the Indian participants tended to for example, the Indian participants tended to let's see, they tended to put more emotional valence on the expressions of surprise, and they tended to rate it with higher genuineness than the Dutch participants. I think this shows that, like, the Indian participants have an easier time, although the accuracy ratings between the two are the same. The Indian participants had an easier time recognizing the emotion of surprise. We're able to get more information out of the expression of surprise because it was done by people from their own culture. So in conclusion, basically we found that, like, that even though Across cultures, the expression of surprise is easily recognizable by all peoples. It its ability to be recognized can be dependent on how different the expression of surprise is, and the differences in expression of surprise can get in the way of that.